Hello, I'm Steven Ramirez. I'm the CEO of Beyond the Arc, and I want to welcome you to Finovate Spring 2019. This is really where FinTech happens, and it's been happening. It's been a great action-packed event so far, and we've got some really interesting conversations for you. All right, so today I have the pleasure of talking with Jacob Jegher from Javelin. Jacob, as well known as you are throughout the industry, it still amazes me that maybe there's someone who doesn't know you. But for those few out there, if you don't mind just giving a brief introduction.
That's very kind of you to say. Thank you. So I run our digital banking business at Javelin Strategy and Research. So my area of focus is essentially anything that touches retail digital banking, business digital banking, and I also run our benchmarking programs for the firm.
Excellent. And so, you've been at Finovate for years. You're certainly at the heart of FinTech. So what are some of the trends that are really exciting for you?
So there are a number of trends, that are really important in the industry today. I can tell you a little bit based on the presentation that I just gave on the main stage. I think that might be a good way of pitching it. I'm always looking for topics that are not common. In other words, things we don't hear a lot about, right? Not the popular one, but more the up and coming, perhaps the red-headed stepchild of today, but the shining star of tomorrow. So my presentation was on banking, digital banking for the self-employed and freelancers, and all the folks who enter the gig economy today who are essentially running their own businesses, but they're confused financially.
And is this everybody from an Uber driver to a small business owner to everything in between?
An Uber driver to a small business owner to someone who runs a landscaping business to the person moonlighting on the side, with his or her own shop, whatever they may be doing. And they have business banking needs, but they're not being banked like businesses. And it creates a lot of financial confusion, right? So these folks are maybe running their businesses using personal bank accounts. Creates tax confusion, and they need help with everything from perhaps incorporating to managing how they split their finances between business and personal accounts, and requiring all types of digital tools that'll help them accept payments, issue invoices, things like that.
Well, so for banks, we usually think about consumers or they think about businesses. So
Correct.
Is this sort of a change in mindset that's going to be required?
Absolutely. In fact, for some banks, it may add to the confusion because it introduces yet another slice of the population to consider and to package and market to, right? So these two areas have been quite siloed at financial institutions, consumers on one side, businesses on the other, and now, yes, you do have the other slice.
So if you were, let's say a medium-sized bank, then you said, you know what, I would like to better serve the freelance economy. Do you have a couple of words of advice? Like what would you suggest they do to get started?
Absolutely. In fact, I think it's a great opportunity for a mid-sized, regional, or even a smaller community bank to start thinking about this, because they need to find ways to differentiate from the bigger guys who spend a lot of money and have big pockets for investments in digital. So my advice to them would be to figure out how to work with their current providers, open up their ecosystem a bit so that they can partner with third parties and fintechs to create the right package.
And so that leads to some fintech partnering, perhaps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of absolute requirement. But some of them might be constrained by their current core providers, right, which could be a challenge. But ultimately, it's where they need to be headed.
Excellent. Any particular first step? Like, is there a particular technology that you think that they should look at, or is there a silver bullet app that they should go after first?
Yeah, I think the holy grail, as I just presented in the talk, for any business, no matter how small or large you are, is cash flow. So ultimately, being able to manage cash flow and understand your cash flow is perhaps the best place to start in order to get that full financial picture for a business and allow them to understand where their next move is and where their next dollar should come from.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, and also the idea of the sort of the invoicing on the go. I think that was another point. Now, is that something you see banks really being able to provide? I don't necessarily think about my bank as a provider of that kind of service.
And that's part of the challenge, right? We have quite a number of fintechs and third parties and play in this space today, but it's very fragmented, right? So a micro business or self-employed individual might need to go to 4, 5, 6 different fintechs, pay a fee at each in order to get this done. But when we ask them where they would like to have these services come from, they say their bank.
Great. I can really see this as something around understanding the customer experience, right? Because you really have to get in the shoes of those freelancers and to be able to ideally maybe make it data-driven, like, hey, what an idea that might be, right?
Exactly, absolutely. Being in the shoes of your customer is very well said. It's ultimately about understanding what their needs are. And so is the data-driven points, right? To the point where a piece of data might say you need access to capital. So is it in the app on your phone that you'll then be able to use to originate a small loan or line of credit, right? So there's all types of things that can come out and originate from, no pun intended, from the data.
Yeah, so that immediately makes me think about risk. So banks, they want to be able to manage their risk. They're thinking, well, how do we, is there a change in underwriting? Is there a change in risk policy? Anything they need to be thinking about in this transformation?
Absolutely. I mean, the access to a quick loan is not necessarily a new concept, and there are quite a number of financial institutions that have explored it with third parties, with a number of fintechs that are out there in the space. So I don't think that would necessarily represent a sea change. However, yes, there are certainly risk and compliance requirements around it.
And do you think that there's going to be anything that the big banks are going to be able to do to kind of keep everyone from nipping at their heels? So now we talked about sort of small and medium. What about the larger banks? How do they play in this space?
The large ones are going to be the ones who are going to be able to build a larger package in one fell swoop, right? Because they have the dollars to partner with multiple, or to buy, or to build, and also invest in very slick experiences. Or so I'm hoping, right? I mean, if you ask me what my prediction is about where this is going, it wouldn't shock me to see 12, 18 months from now some really slick package coming from a large bank that's focused on the self-employed and entrepreneurs.
Excellent. Well, Jacob, thank you very much. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you, Stephen. I
really
appreciate
appreciate
it. Thanks for having me.